And they said, Bob, why am I not getting any calls? This is a bad ad. And I said, no, it's a great ad. But you didn't put yourself in any customer's shoes.
Welcome to Cracking the Code. Today we're kicking off a special series where we introduce you to the people behind the coaching program here at Contractor University. Many contractors reach a point where they realize that running a successful HVAC company requires more than great technical skills. Leadership, accountability, building strong teams, and creating systems that drive consistent performance are just as important as repairing and installing equipment correctly. That's where coaching can really make a difference. Our guest today is Bob Larkin, one of our business coaches here at Contractor University. Bob has spent decades working with contractors and helping business owners focus on the habits and disciplines that lead to high-performance results. Bob has a unique ability to take complex business challenges and simplify them into practical actions contractors can apply immediately. But before we jump right in, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to Cracking the Code so we can impact even more contractors in our great industry. Hey, Bob, it's great to have you today.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. You're on the east side of Georgia. I'm on the west side of Georgia, and man, we are getting some rain, so hope we get through this okay. You've worked with contractors from many different markets and different company sizes, anything from 1 and 2 truck operators up to hundreds of trucks. So when you first start working with a contractor, what are some of the most common patterns or challenges you tend to hear them express?
Well, I think a lot of it, you really have to understand where the majority of contractors in our industry come from. And where most of them come from is this progression. The individual graduates high school, they go to tech school, they learn how to fix air conditioners. They get a job fixing air conditioners. They get good at fixing air conditioners. One day lightning strikes or they get mad at their boss, they quit and open their own company. Now, David, you've been around this a long time. Would you agree that's where most of our industry comes from?
I can testify to that. My grandfather went through that exact same progression in 1956. He was working for another guy. He kept saying, that guy's an idiot, that guy's an idiot. And March 15th, 1956, he was working for an idiot. March 16th, 1956, he's working for himself, a lunatic, because he didn't really know anything about running the business. So yeah, that is typical of the progression that we see for sure.
So where in that progression was that individual ever exposed to, say, a profit and loss statement?
Nada.
Never.
Well,
most of them at this point have never seen one. And it's not like they're dumb. How are you supposed to be, understand something you've never even seen before? And as a business owner, they're expected to be an expert on day one. Completely unrealistic expectation. And a lot of people I work with, and I actually fell in this boat, in my company, they feel like they're supposed to know this. They don't know it. They're embarrassed and they don't want to admit it. And thankfully, in my company, I hired a controller who's really good. He's kind of my number 2 in the company, and he saw through my BS. And he basically beat me over the head until I learned it. And I can tell you, it was one of those things, it was like a switch flipped in my head. I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm looking at it, and I said, this makes no sense to me. And then one day, after doing it over and over and over, it was like a switch flipped in my head. I said, oh my God, this is so simple. How did I not know this? And I've seen that progression with coaching clients I have.
Yeah, that part, that part is the fun part, right? When you actually kind of get through and the fog kind of lifts and they're like, oh my gosh, this is not as hard as I thought it was. I don't know why I'm so scared to do this.
Well, I think you gave the analogy that I use all the time now is I'll ask one of my coaching clients, I said, the first time you looked at a wiring diagram, you understood it completely, right? And of course, the answer is no, they didn't. But now most of them can look at a wiring diagram and it's second nature. They don't even think about it. It's the same way with profit and loss statements in accounting. Once that switch flips in your head, it's a piece of cake. The other things I would say that I deal with in causes, like I said, understanding your numbers, how to adequately price a job or price your service call, service labor rate, using your numbers. Well, you got to know your numbers, and you got to have good numbers to be able to do that. And most of the people that I first start working with, they don't really know how to price their numbers, and they can't figure out why they're not making enough money. And that's a lot of what we deal with. But then it goes, to me, the very basics of everything is having a vision, knowing where you're going. And, I'll explain to my coaching clients, when I say a vision, what I'm really saying is just, let's start with 5 years. Just think about what you want this company to look like in 5 years and completely define that. What facility are you going to be in? I said, dream a little bit. That's okay. How many employees are you going to have? How many service techs? How many installers? How many trucks? What's your revenue going to be? What's your gross profit? What's your net profit? Once you define all that, okay, now we know where we're going. And figuring out how to get there from where you are now is really just a conversation and a math problem. That's all it is.
It really is, right? It's expressing the vision that you have for the business and making sure you can communicate that to the rest of the team. You get them to buy in to helping you get there, because you're not going to do it by yourself. You're just not, right? It takes teamwork.
And there's one other thing that's a pretty big one, that I usually see common problems, with contractors is in their marketing. The first thing to me about marketing in this industry is you have to put yourself in your homeowner's shoes. And that's not as easy as it sounds. Because as contractors, the problem is we know too much. And we sometimes assume that our customers do too. So here's a common mistake I see in coaching calls. It'll be, shoulder season of the year, and they're slow, and they'll set up a coaching call with me, and they're panicking a little bit because they've got no business, and they're trying to figure out how to get some business, and they put together an ad that's honestly beautiful. It's a great ad, really looks good, and they got just a killer price on a new system, and they throw that ad out there, and they get no calls. And they said, Bob, why am I not getting any calls? This is a bad ad. And I said, no, it's a great ad. And I said, but you didn't put yourself in any customer shoes. And I said, the reason you didn't get any calls is because it's 70 degrees outside. And you got to understand, there's a tenet in this industry that we tend to not understand. To most of our customers, as an industry, we don't matter until we do. If it's working, they're not thinking about us. We're out of sight, out of mind. So that beautiful ad that my client threw out there, they might have seen it, but it never even registered in their mind because they're not in the marketplace or don't think they should be in the marketplace. And that's one of the biggest things is understanding your customer and what they are thinking. That's how you're going to reach them.
So thinking about those companies that consistently perform at a high level, what habits or disciplines do you see that sort of separate them from the average contractor? So what are the high performing guys doing regularly that others aren't?
Well, a lot of what we just said, put yourself in your home, in your customer's shoes, and knowing how to reach them, educating them, just like you just said. Most homeowners don't realize that the average life expectancy of a heating and air system is 12 to 15 years. Beyond that, they don't even know how old their system is. If you ask them, they'll give you something. They'll say like 5 years, and you go down in the basement and take a look at it, and that thing's 15 years old. That's the situation. And they don't understand the type of industry that we're in and what we're dealing with. That's a lot of what I did in the companies I owned is just be very upfront with our customers. This is a crazy business I'm in. And my partner in Jacksonville, I think defined it best. He said, you know what? We only have two speeds. Speed number one is how in the world are we going to get all this done? Speed number two is what in the world are we going to do today? And that's our industry. And our customers don't really understand that. And if you tell them, look, if, I don't know how manufacturing in this industry are so precise that they can build a piece of mechanical equipment that'll last 15 years, and somehow they're able to design that thing where it only dies after 5 o'clock on Friday or 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, when it's 102 degrees. Yeah.
Yes, and I tell the customer, I said, you know what, when that happens to you, you're my customer, I'm going to do everything in the world to try to take care of you, but understand the box I'm in. I have hundreds of service calls with people with no cooling on my board. Me and my guys are working till 2 a.m. every day trying to catch up. We're going to do our best to get to you, but understand where we are. And I can't give you the best price on a new system if you need one. But in March, I can give you a great price.
Well, and we can do a better job on the job too, because it's not near as hot in the attic. We can spend more time and do the project properly. We're not rushed, right? The cost to do the job is actually less in the off season, if you will, because we're not having to do a bunch of overtime, right? It's scheduled work. So yeah, there's lots of benefits to figuring out how to get jobs done when it's not hot outside or cold outside. So for contractors listening today who want to grow their business, but they feel a little stuck, what's one area you would encourage them to focus on improving right now?
Okay. I'll say two things. The first one is, I kind of mentioned before, is having a vision. And just start with 5 years. Define what you want this company to look like in 5 years. And like I said before, figuring out how to get there is really just a conversation and a math problem. And that goes into a budgeting and planning process. And that's really, it's just a conversation and some math. The way we did it in our company, we did a budgeting and a planning every usually first week in December. And basically we would just have a conversation. First part of it was what went right in our company and our business in the year we're just finishing up, what went wrong. We just had a conversation. And then say, okay, what's going to be different about the next year? It was just a conversation, and we're writing all this stuff down, and then we figure out, okay, what's our increase going to be? And then we start building our plan. From, okay, if this is our increase in January of next year, that means our revenue is going to be this, and it's going to be this amount in the installation department, this amount in the service department, based on our average ticket sale or ticket size moving forward. That means we're going to have to do this many jobs in install. If our closing ratio is X, that means we're going to need this many leads. Where did those leads going to come from? We're just having a conversation, but we're building a plan as we go. Do we have the people to do that many jobs? If not, how long is it going to take to find those people and buy the truck, et cetera, et cetera? And we just build every month. And then we go back to the beginning once we got it all built, and we break it down to the week and to the day. And you can do that for that 5-year plan. It's the same thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is some advice I always give the first time, or most time I give, first time I have a new coaching client, and I'll tell them, the good thing about Contractors University is there is more content here than I've ever seen in one place in my entire time in the industry. Would you agree with that, David?
Yeah, there's no doubt.
At Contractor University, we're here to help. That's what this whole coaching program's about. As a member, you get a coaching call every month. So you will not get hung up. We will get you unhung, and we'll help you move forward.
Thanks for sharing your experience and insights with us, Bob. And for those of you listening, if you're part of Contractor University, you already have access to coaches like Bob, like he just said, who spend their time helping contractors think through these challenges and build stronger businesses. Hey, Bob, thanks again for joining us.
All right. Appreciate it, David.
You bet. And thanks to all of you for listening to Cracking the Code, where we make HVAC business success as stress-free as possible. Until next time, keep on cracking.